I want to let you guys know I was like fully intending on recording the episode, and then when you guys are like, "No, I mean you can take the day off if you want," I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take the day off.
You weren't actually supposed to take the day off. You were just being nice. I'm just kidding. I'm glad you did.
I appreciated it. Oh man. So anyway, welcome back to Speech Bubbles. A webcomic podcast for people who want to do webcomics by people who make webcomics. Webcomics. My name is Brent. I do the webcomic Paradise.
My name is Amber, and I do the webcomic Backlash.
And my name's Jeff, and I do the webcomic Firearm with a Y.
And I'm actually kind of glad we moved the recording day up a little bit. I had some allergy stuff this weekend. I was really afraid I was going to be doing this episode with no voice.
Oh no.
Would have made for interesting audio.
It would have made for a whole bunch of suffering on my part. But
as you can see now, Brent is trying to mime his answer. He's making a square. A cube. It's a three-dimensional cube.
We have to read all of your type in the chat. We have to read
do
all
like
of your
voice
responses.
to speech.
We have to do our best Brent.
There's like our Brent impressions. There's agonizing silence as you're typing. It would have been a fun episode.
It would have been something, but glad we're recording right now. So this week we are talking about marketing and knowing your audience and all that good stuff. I know this is like probably the most like adult adult as in adult topic that we've had so far.
The only other thing I associate with adult more than marketing is the word taxes, probably.
Yep.
So yeah, marketing and knowing your audience is definitely something people have to think about when doing a webcomic, because you want people to read it, so you do have to kind of sell it a little bit. And I think a big thing is not just selling it, but like selling it to the right people and selling it to people who are going to be receptive to it and want to read it, and maybe want to if you're trying to make it financially viable, maybe buy merch or support you on your Patreon or what have you. That's important. So y'all, that's marketing. What have been your personal experiences with it? With marketing yourself and getting yourself out there.
Well, I'm just going to start by saying I am probably the worst example, even though I have taken a marketing class.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I went to at my old tech school. I took a few classes on entrepreneurship and marketing principles, and I get it. I understand what I need to be thinking about. So I guess I don't pour enough time into actually thinking about it, because I'm just like, hey guys, my comic updated this week. It updated another time this week. You all should probably read it. Maybe bump it up once or every now and then. At most, I don't really actually market.
So you know a lot about this, but your application is a little weak.
It leaves something to be desired.
Now it just sounds like I'm just a college failure.
Oh no! I didn't mean to have it sound like that. I'm sorry.
It's okay, because it's true.
Oh no. Hey, I mean, listen, marketing, I think, like everything else in webcomic, is very much tied to the long game.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
Nothing happens overnight. I think we talked about that a little bit in the last episode. But what about you, Amber?
Well, with marketing, I think it's interesting because I don't know, when I think marketing, the first thing I don't associate that with what it's always I think of marketing as billboards for law firms and stuff like that, like commercials, but you don't, that's not how webcomics are marketed. It's through word of mouth. I feel it's really kind of like a social media game.
Yeah.
trying to get as many people to see your posts about it as possible, which is where like this like camaraderie between you and your fellow webcomic creators comes in, where I'll boost yours if you boost mine, you know, kind of thing. And I don't know, for me personally, I never really thought about marketing when I was starting my comic. And I still don't think about it a whole lot, unfortunately. Like sometimes I'll be like, you know, maybe I got a lot of new followers all of a sudden. Maybe I should make a post like, hey, so I know you followed me for fan art probably, but I have a webcomic. You know, like I should probably bump it a little bit, and then usually I'll get a few new readers.
Yeah, I make a tweet like that maybe like every time I post like a really like you know, like I post a piece of fan art or something that like blows up and I get like a handful of followers. Like anytime I get like more than 5 followers in like a 2-day span, I usually make a tweet be like, hey, I've got a comic in case you didn't see it in my description in my pinned tweet.
In case you didn't notice.
Somehow missed it.
In case you need a personal invitation, here it is.
Here. I don't know if I think about like marketing it myself. I do definitely think about like how it's perceived by my potential audience and stuff a lot. I think I made a string of tweets about this like once. Like Paradise was originally conceived as like a super shonen, super combat based narrative, and it's become something that's a little more like a story about like interconnected like interpersonal relationships that also has anime fights in it.
Yeah.
So like I think I definitely changed some of my like descriptions and stuff on my various websites to like reflect that, so it wasn't like action comic is like, so people kind of know what they're getting into, I guess.
Yeah. Actually, I kind of want to double back a bit. I do have one marketing experience I can think of, and it involves back when I was starting out and happening to know a certain webcomic mutual who had been starting out for some time, and I was a big fan of. Looking at you, Amber.
What? Stop!
I know this anecdote. Go ahead.
But it's an idea I had where I wanted to kind of help boost my followers, also like more or less just have a reason to like share backlash with a bunch of people I like knew, like my friends and stuff. It's like, hey, I'm just like, hey, Amber. Hey, buddy, I had an idea. Now, it sounds crazy, but bear with me. What if we did what the print comics do, and we draw variant covers for our comics?
I love that. I love doing that, by the way, Jeff. That was really fun.
That was really fun. I plan to keep doing it.
Let's say, so honestly, like, guest art can be, like, a really good way for, like, webcomic artists to introduce their audiences to each other. Especially if they're like a Tapastic following or like a following on a webcomic hosting site that maybe doesn't follow you on Twitter or Tumblr or what have you.
Yeah, I know you guys have kind of been working out things like that. I know Amber did some in between chapter, like I think it was the last chapter.
I think, right?
Oh, bonus comics?
Yeah, 2 chapters ago.
That was after chapter 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was a big guest
a lot of people did guest comics. I was overwhelmed by how many people wanted to do that.
I think I'm probably gonna put out the call for guest comics for Paradise soon, because this chapter is maybe like less than a month away from updating, depending on if I ended on a batch update or not. But I'm definitely probably gonna be like cut it off at like 4 or something, so that's 2 weeks of content.
I think this is kind of, I have like a weird, it just made me start thinking about like my audience perception of my comic, and like that's something I think I like purposefully try not to think about because it makes me like distressed because I think what I've like been selling them is not exactly like it doesn't like hint at what will come later. Because that was kind of a weird way to say it. My comic is getting to the point where it's like, here's the plot. This is the like conflict, and this is what we're going to be dealing with
on the back of the DVD.
Yeah, this is what you put on the back. And so I kind of had a really vague like description of my comic for a long time, like really vague, because I didn't want to I wanted to like build too the plot before I like gave it away, you know, like and it, you know, it took a couple chapters to get there, and so that I'm like, we're almost there. Then I could change the description to be more accurate, and then I can start selling it. I'm really worried about like my target audience is not something I thought about when I was first making it, and Backlash was like initially gonna get really dark.
Oh.
Like kind of scary stuff happened in it, and it's changed since then, and it still has like pretty dark, and it gets kind of, I don't know, it's not really supposed to be for children. It's not a for children comic, and I definitely got some like goofy, lovable jokes in there. And I'm like, I don't know how to like, I guess like content warnings are just gonna be my friends probably, but yeah, like marketing was never something I really like thought about when I was first making it, because I was just making it like the story I wanted to make for me. And so everything that I had in it, I was like, well, I'm okay with this. This is something I would want to read as like an adult making a young adult making comics, you know? Like, I don't know, I'll probably be more mindful of it and like how I market my next project. 'Cause, you know, learning curve with this first one.
Oh god, you just reminded me, like, I don't even think about people on the internet who are like younger than like 17, 18 maybe.
They exist! They do exist!
And I'm sure they might be like reading all of our comics, but it's like oh man, like teenagers or like kids, like I have not, like, I do not even assume. I just like, you know, Paradise is like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Paradise is going to get like very, very dark per se, but like, I mean, I read like One Piece a whole bunch as a kid, and that has a fucking metric shit ton of blood in it, and like, but it's like cartoonified violence, and that's about as bad as like Paradise gets, really. So like, I don't know. I'm marketing it to like myself, but also like if I had to put it in an age range, it would be like probably like upper teens to like mid 20s.
Yeah, something. That's same here.
Young adult.
Although to be like real, the like younger, what I've found is at least like from my own experience and like watching other like younger teenagers like the like edgy stuff, like stuff that like,
I mean, that makes sense.
Can be like dark humor and like dark stuff because like it's cool, you know, and it's like it's what they want to read. And there's also like kind of like that feeling of like when you were younger and you would want to watch Toonami, but your parents caught you like in the middle of like a Bleach episode where people were like getting cut open, you know, like that like, ooh, this is like something my parents probably wouldn't want me to be reading. I'm gonna read it anyway. Like there's swears in this, you know, like it was like, it's cool if kids and like younger kids like that. And I think kind of like if you have like a comic or like a story that has like kind of darker themes in it, or like has moments that are kind of dark, I think maybe being aware of like the potential like younger readers you probably have, like, and like the impact it might have on them.
Because it's the internet, anybody can see anything basically.
Anyone can see anything.
If they're savvy enough.
Yeah, you can't stop them. And like that's also the thing is like that people won't look at stuff if they don't want to.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is getting off topic.
It's a little bit of a diversion, but it's also like a super interesting topic. But yeah, I mean, we can
knowing your audience, I guess.
Yeah, knowing your audience and stuff. Yeah. I think as far as like audience interaction and perception goes, I think that's really a really meaty topic that I think we'll probably dip in a little bit here. But I would like to do for a later episode. If you want, we can just start on these dang questions.
Yeah, get those questions going.
From @JugenPuppet. What's a way to get your viewers more excited for an upcoming comic, and how do you reply to "your character looks like blank" comments without dying inside? And Amber, you get a bunch of these, so if we want to tackle that part first, how do you respond to "your character looks like blank" comments?
Wow, well let me tell you, let me give you my experience for just like a hot second, because man, this is something I sure deal with. I asked one of my roommates, I was like, does your helmeted character get this many like comparisons? And she was like, no, I don't. No. I don't know what's up with yours. And I'm like, okay, fine. So Alias is the one that this applies to. One of the main characters in my comic, he has a helmet that he wears. and it covers his whole face, and he's never taken it off. And I have gotten a range of people comparing him to someone from Tron, to Deadpool, to Rorschach. I think I got Batman once. Like,
that's a stretch.
Right? I was like, I don't know about that one.
The Rorschach one was the only one that made sense to me, and that's because when he's in the Bearcat, he's got like a wide brim, like brown hat on, and his face is black and white. And if you're going off of pure visuals and you maybe don't have your glasses on, like, okay, I can see it.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm like, okay, maybe. But then it also like extends to like people thinking his personality is the same as other characters, and I'm like, no, because Alias doesn't kill people. Like, but anyway, that's a different topic. But so, you don't reply to those comments.
Yeah.
Like, I get those all the time, and honestly, like, maybe I'll just like show it to a friend and be like, look at this. I just got this. And they're like, there, pal, and they give you a pat on the back, and then you just continue with your day. You can't really stop yourself from dying inside, because I am dead inside. It happens so much. I like just don't exist anymore. And it just will continue to happen, especially Jugum, I know I've like seen you putting your stuff out for your characters, like specifically talking to you now. And I know that you're probably talking about your helmet guy. And I think that it's just the curse of helmeted characters, because people just immediately associate that with like the handful of characters they like already know of, even if they don't look anything like them. So
just like, I hate to sound like we all sound really salty about this subject, but this is a thing that like pretty much like 95% of artists hate, and like pretty much all non-artists do. And it's just like a constant, because people, they don't mean anything horrible by it, you know, like we know that. They're just like, my brain sees this, and I am making that as an association because it seems like tangentially related, at least visually, to this other thing, and I'm going to comment. And that's it. It's not malicious. It's just like...
Yeah.
Right.
But like what that does is it does kind of make me feel like all the like time and effort I spent into designing this character all thrown out the window by this single like summary that this person provided. Like, it kind of is like, it kind of sucks, like when you put so much time and effort into like creating something original, and like people, all they have to say is makes me think of this other thing. You're like, thanks pal. But yeah, so just like don't engage with that, because there isn't really anything you can say.
Thanks,
like,
I guess.
No, like I wouldn't even say thanks. Like, just ignore it.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll stop. Okay, so the first part of this question is what's a way to get your viewers more excited for an upcoming con? This might be a little like specific, but I immediately thought of like my friend has a friend who he was doing a Kickstarter for his comic. And what he did was he actually just like messaged like people who have more of an audience and asked, hey, could you share my project? And they were like, sure, and like helped him get traction like an ice. And I actually like thinking about it, I wouldn't mind. I've had people like be like, hey, would you mind like featuring like or like reblogging a post from me for my comic? Like it's starting up right now, and I'd really appreciate it if you read it. And like I'm like, hey, heck yeah, comics are hard, and I'd love to read your webcomic, you know? So like that's like kind of a really specific thing, but like you could like.
But well, speaking from like me personally, I would be like less inclined to do so if I didn't know the person who was asking.
Right.
That. If I wasn't like pals with that person, I might be more like, are you trying to like use me as a a megaphone for your? But if it was like if I had like a friend who was starting their webcomic, honestly, they probably wouldn't even ask. Anytime I see like a friend who's starting a webcomic, I'm like, retweet that shit. Hey, followers, get a load of this shit. Follow this person.
So like using other people, you know, like making friends for one thing, making friends in the same like vein as you're trying to get into is always good. Being nice and making friends, using each other to like like
wow.
like it's not like a bad thing. It's good to be like, hey, I have followers, you have followers, and we each have like individual followers that aren't following each other. Let's try to like share.
It's camaraderie though. It's not like it's not so like cynical as like using each other for like advertising.
That's
That thing you just said is like
simple.
the subconscious conversation that happens when you agree to do something like an art trade or something, or like a boosting, is like in your brain you're like, cool, but like it's not the core of the action is like helping a friend out, I think.
I feel like we should probably, just phrase that. Don't try and like just make friends.
Don't try and make friends for advertising purposes. Make friends because you have
that probably came out really. I meant like it's part of the same game though. Like you just happen to make friends with people, and then it's like, oh hey, we're really good buddies, and now we like can help each other further our goals.
Having a sense of like community with other content creators is
getting your viewers excited for your upcoming comic. Draw your stuff,
and
draw your characters, make them look cool. Get like.
Do silly things with them.
Be really hype about your own thing too. Be your own hype man.
I think definitely like character sketches and maybe like promo images. I don't need to see like whole paragraphs on plot though.
No.
I don't need to know a whole bunch of details. If you show me some cool characters and maybe like a mock like chapter cover or something, like that's enough. I don't need to be like, this is this character and this is their whole deal and this is the thing that they do and this is kind of their arc, and it's like, just wind it back, put it in the comic. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of in the vein of like knowing your audience. If you know people who just like visually like seeing characters, they just are very interesting characters, just draw that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I usually like if I on my like feed somewhere and I like see cool art and like cool characters online, there's like a big old paragraph explaining it. I don't read that. I just look for the link and then I go read the comic. Yeah. Like I'm like I don't want to know. Read it. Like but like, for some people they do kind of need a hook. So that's fine to provide that.
And I think something getting people excited about your very first comic project, I think is something I think we should mention is I think going to be unless you have like a pretty big following already, getting people like really excited for your like very first comic project I think is going to be slow going in general.
Yes.
Because like one, it's like you've never like I have comic projects on the back burner and I've been like thinking about different ways to hype them up and different ways to like start advertising them and stuff as I do them. That wouldn't be the way I did with Paradise, because like I have a different kind of following now and like I have a little more experience sort of deal. But like that very first project, unless you have like a thousands and thousands of followers, is gonna feel like you're like out on the street corner, like holding up pages of your comic, like look at my webcomic.
Extra. Please look at my comic.
It don't cost nothing.
Yeah, like when I started Backlash, it was actually like a really interesting. I had drawn the characters for myself. Like everything I had ever only on DeviantArt. I only posted art on DeviantArt. I wasn't on anything else. And I posted stuff for me. It was like a mishmash of like fan art that I drew for myself, and then like my characters every once in a while. And sometimes people seemed interested. And then like I was like, hey, I'm gonna just do this comic. And then people like followers that I'd made who were all interested in like OCs and like in like the original character tournament scene, like that kind of stuff. They were like, oh, I know this character. I'm excited. It was only people, it was just a couple, but they were excited to see like me putting them finally like in an actual story and like giving them their own canon and going on that adventure. And then they would like share it with their friends. And it's a very slow growth because it's just baby's first webcomic. It's gonna take a little while probably. I think the only time I've ever seen a webcomic like instantly, like first webcomic instantly do well is when the artist is already known because they have like really good like illustrations or like they already draw stuff, and so they already have like a decent following, and then they're like, hey, I'm doing a comic now, and everyone oh yeah,
because you got a built-in audience basically.
Yeah, you like your audience was already there, and it's easier to get. Yeah, so it's gonna be a slow go, and that's okay.
Yeah,
for the long
just keep doing it.
Very few people get anywhere immediately. Most art advice that I've heard from like artists who work is basically like it's the people who stick it out the longest that like stay in the game basically.
Yeah, just gotta keep going.
Hey Amber, how about that next question?
I will. let's see, from at, oh, I hope I don't say this wrong, Ricelin? Sorry. How do I spread the word about my classes annoying or desperate? I don't like advertising and assume others don't either. Oh, you don't like advertising?
Well, I kind of feel that because like sometimes I feel bad about just like trying to like hype up my stuff all the time because I feel like I'm just gonna be annoying people.
Well, I mean,
this is a different boundary for different people. I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. The way that I always think about advertising is like I want it to be like available for people who are potentially interested. And I usually find that like if you're not interested, you're not going to click the link and you're not really going to get irritated. You're just going to scroll by it.
Yeah.
You know? I think like the desperation part that probably comes in like it like depends on how you word your advertising.
Yeah.
Please, guys, please read my comic. Please, I really need the views. Like,
yeah.
Like, just like phrase it as like a suggestion. Like, hey, maybe read my comic.
I think, delivery is going to be like a lot of it. And like, if you make like sulky posts about like no one reading your comic, I think that's going to end up putting your like the followers you have off.
Yeah, they're like, well, I am reading it. What am I, chopped liver?
Yeah. I mean, it's everybody, I think, feels that way at some point or another. Like, man, no one. I know I definitely did. Like, probably about the beginning, probably about like maybe 2 or 3 months into my comic, I was like, man, I feel like no one's really reading my comic, and like, but you know, not the case currently. So I mean, if you like, don't. I think you want to be confident. You want to be confident when you're bumping your comic and when you're spreading the word. I think is the big. I think that's what spreads the line between like annoying and desperate.
Yeah, like, I only get annoyed is when people are guilt tripping me. Like I haven't read it yet, or I haven't gotten the chance to sit down and read it yet, and then like the people have like if I'm following them and they're just like kind of like jabs and like self-deprecating tweets about like they're not good enough and they're not like nobody's reading it and it's really putting them down, and I'm like, well, I haven't gotten a chance yet, like I think that's just like bad feels perpetuate bad feels, and that like kind of builds like negativity between you and your potential readers. I'm less inclined to read something if somebody is like being real bitter about it. And just honestly,
be confident, walk with a confident stride. Also, jokes are great. I use jokes for whenever I update my stuff. Like, that's how I try and get people. Hey, here's a funny joke.
But if I do like a bump tweet, like, I mean, a lot of times I don't have the energy, and someone will be like, "Hey, did you read today's new page?" But I like usually if I'm doing a bump tweet, I gotta write out a whole tweet. I'll usually put like something absurd or goofy.
I love those though. They're funny. Those are good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think like with spreading the word, also like if you don't have like a really big following, like share it with your mutuals. Be like, hey, like maybe give it a look. Like people that you know, friends of yours, like, you know, so then like if like they can read it and then you have like their support, and have your friends like during like kind of the slow build up phase, like still reading it, and then like that support will help you also.
And I feel like at least for like starting out, I feel like even there's definitely going to be some times where it feels like nothing. Basically, it feels like you're not getting out to anyone, but it's like really just stick it out and keep going. And like there's going to be some days where you don't get it like a lot of traction, and it might be because like something happened. I know there are definitely like some update days where like maybe like E3 was going on or something, and the whole feed was all about something else, and like that's all right. Like don't be salty about it. Just like post and be like, if you don't get a lot of traction that day, that's just like the nature of the feed, basically. And like, hey, it's not like your comic's not going to have another new page next week. You can advertise.
Yeah.
Get them on the next one.
Things like that. Be positive about it. Not this week, but maybe next week.
Yeah, Jeff, you want to read this next one?
Yeah, all right. So from at Water Drain, what is the best way to find an audience that your comic is geared towards?
This is so
Well,
tough and so essential, I feel
I
like.
think if you know what your genre for your comic is, if you know what kind of comic it is, I think that might help a bit. Just start spreading the word like, hey, here's my comic. My comic's about such and such. Like I always like whenever I'm explaining my comic, I'm like, oh, it's a sci-fi western with superpowers with girls that kick butt. And like that's usually my sales pitch on it.
Succinct and to the point.
And I'm hoping that if those any of those buzzwords grab you, I got you. Come on in.
Got ya.
What do you guys think?
I'm like not looking for a specific type of audience, like, which is weird. Like my audience, I think, like the people who are reading my comic, I'm hoping that they're here because they just like the characters and content I usually produce. Because like my comic is not going to be vastly different from the usual content I'm usually talking about. You know, so like I try to make it so that like the audience that I'm building up just on any social media or like anywhere, like the audience that I'm gathering and like cultivating is one that I think would enjoy like any of the comics that I put out, because they're like my brand, like the me TM.
I think
like
that's an important distinction. Like instead of building your work around an audience, building an audience around your work.
I think that's more important.
And I mean, and this is really like a money making question. Like if you're marketing to people who, you know, don't super like your work or don't super like the content you're putting out, like you're not gonna get anything back really. I think just build like, and I mean this is just all social media stuff, building an audience who's interested in the content you put out as opposed to like building work around trying to please people is going to cultivate a following who are like people who are just generally going to be into like whatever you throw out there.
Yeah, and I think
finding like-minded artists too is another thing. I think finding that sense of community we talked about 2 questions ago, maybe.
Yeah, I think that like definitely building a audience around you and what you enjoy will also like help you be happy with your stuff in the long run.
Yeah,
because you won't be putting out content that like, oh well, I built myself an audience that's expecting this, but I really just like I wanted the views, but I don't want to keep doing this for another 20 years, you know.
And this is precisely what happened to me. I was super into, some of you might know this if you know me long enough or heard me talk about, but I was super into the Sonic fandom for a good chunk of time.
Yeah, Jeff, tell me about your Sonic OCs.
Well, I can go over them later, but anyway. And I tried, that was like my major following. I had like a lot of followers just because of that. And whenever I posted anything that was not that, you know, maybe a few people be interested, but it was mostly always the Sonic stuff. And eventually I tried creating my first comic, and no one really read it except for like really close friends. Everyone else just like, that's not what I'm here for. So I took it down. I went back to Sonic stuff for a bit, but then I realized, okay, clearly the brand I built here is not going to be into this. And that's when I created my new brand, and started building, like you guys said, started building things around that. And that's kind of how my more original stuff kind of took off.
Yeah, you had built a following around fan content, and then when you tried to do original content, like most of your audience was not here for that.
Yeah, that's why I don't draw fan art very often.
But I think also like kind of as an aside, it's okay also, like it's okay to just like have your brand kind of generally change like gradually over time. Like I mean, for me personally, like my interest fluctuates like freaking ridiculous. Like my focus like will either be on like I just watched something that I really like, so I am drawing fan art for this thing.
Yeah.
And then eventually that will waver though, and I'll back to drawing original stuff, because that's like that's what I've kind of always done that. Like ever since I started drawing, like the first art I drew, it was like I did fan art for like Batman, but at the same time I was making like baby's first OCs like back in junior high. Like so I always had like both like interest in my own stuff and like making my own stories. It's fun for me. And so like that's definitely something I've kind of always just had is like sometimes I'll go through a phase of drawing fan art for something, but then I'll always eventually go back to the original stuff. And I think that my current audience, they like understand that.
Yeah.
And they're like, she's really into Overwatch right now. Well, I also like Overwatch, so I'm fine with this. And the other half are like, she'll go back to OCs eventually. So,
there's nothing wrong with drawing fan art. It's you don't want your like audience to depend. You don't want your following and your audience and your like online presence to depend on that though.
Yeah.
And like it's like if you did base your audience off of like drawing a lot of fan art for something, you can still change your brand.
Yeah.
Like if you just suddenly say want to do this now, if they don't like it, they'll leave. And if they do like it, hey, cool. Instantly like an easy audience. You can build off of your old audience.
So yeah, you might lose followers, but like you'll be happier in the long run, and like you can literally always rebuild. Anytime I do like a piece of fan art that gets like a whole bunch of attention and I get a whole bunch of followers off it, I usually assume it's gonna like inflate my follower account, and then I'll probably get a drop off after a couple of days, depending on like whether or not people like were staying because they thought I was going to produce a whole bunch of that content, or like are staying because they ended up like they followed me for that and found like a whole bunch of other stuff that they like. I feel like this was especially prevalent with when like Undertale was super big, and like,
that's where all of my current followers, like I got so many from Undertale.
Yeah, Undertale was like a monster. Overwatch is still like this a little bit, I feel like.
Yes, Overwatch is also still really relevant.
Yeah.
This is called, am I allowed to like, as an aside, I might edit this out. Am I allowed to talk about like the bait and switch? Is this some trade secret that I'm allowed to talk about on a podcast?
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
because that's what this is.
That's an assumed, artist tactic.
Okay. So like this is called the artist, like, or at least I refer to this as the bait and switch. Even though it's not like you're not purposefully like baiting people in by drawing fan art, like with the express purpose of like getting their interest and then being like, ha, fooled you, read my comic. Like it's like you just like, I happened to draw fan art for something, people found it, they like followed me either because they were expecting more of that fan art, or they just liked my style, or they like
whatever reason.
Yeah, whatever reason. And then after your interest in that fan thing, if you like kind of taper off, you gradually go back to drawing your own original stuff, and then they're here and they'll start reading your comic, or they'll start understanding your that's called we call it the bait and switch, and it sounds a lot more sinister than it really is.
You followed me because I drew a really good McCree, but like now you're reading my webcomic.
And that's a big thing that I do, like, and I don't do it with that in mind. It's just I think
that's the thing. It has to be honest.
Yeah,
you can't. I think it's really transparent when people are doing fan art just for notes and just for reblogs and retweets.
When
it's
people
got to
are
be
drawing
something you're earnestly into, because people will see that and people will sense that and people will like understand. I think if it feels like you're just like doing some soulless fan art to shell out for some attention, you might get it, but I think people are going to sense that inherently.
You can tell. Like, I don't know if you like, maybe it's only like an artist. As an artist, I can tell when like that art is soulless. They drew this, they keep drawing like fan art pinups because they know people like it, like, and they don't actually care about this thing at all. They're just doing it for the views. And
there's
like,
a difference between like, this thing is hot right now, and it's like, this is a thing I'm really into and I wanted to draw a lot of characters for it.
And that's why I only draw the occasional fan art. If I'm into it, you'll see it, and then you'll know I was really into it.
And I think that's a good way to put it, Brent, is the like earnest. You have to be honest. It's an honest bait and switch. It's not mean spirited, and it's not like nefarious. It's just it's a natural occurrence.
I think honesty is really important in being a content creator in general. Like TBH, like just a lot of like core tenets. Really, like if you boil them down to their basic ingredients, it's like be a decent person and like present yourself as honestly as you can without giving yourself to the monster. Basically. Present yourself as honestly as you can without like drying up into a husk. And let's read this final question from at BMCAD07. I was wondering if it's a good idea to build your own website for webcomics despite having a small niche audience. I've noticed an artist I followed built their paid website for the webcomic. Sometimes it's good to build a website, but their webcomic is new. It felt a little risky. And I think that's a very interesting and good point.
It is. That is really interesting. I personally, of paying for the site, but like I personally really want to get my own website for my comics. I want like I have like a big dream about what it's gonna look like and stuff. I want like one-stop shop for all of your comic needs from me. Like have everything be in one place, but like nice and separated. But anyway,
here's the thing. I think there are some people, like they turn their nose up a little bit at Tapastic because of it. And I mean,
I've seen that.
It's a little. There are some fair criticisms to make of a website like Tapastic, but like, the fact that you can find new webcomics on there, and like because you have an account, you are able to subscribe to those comments and like leave comments. It's really nice. Yeah. No one's going to like accidentally stroll across your website is the thing. If they're following you off of Twitter or Tumblr or whatever already, and you have a website, people will know that. If you're like on Hiveworks and they have your website like set up for you, like you'll have that set of advertising. You're not, unless somebody already follows you somewhere else on social media, no one's gonna like accidentally scroll across your website probably.
It actually makes I've seen a lot of like kind of bigger comics people say like I like if your comic is on Tapastic or like Smack G's, I'm not gonna read it. And I'm like, that's
which sucks. Yeah, not everybody can even afford having a website.
Yeah, like hosting sites are really good for like people who like they're trying out webcomics and they're not sure if this is something that's actually for them and they just kind of want to give it a shot, or it's their first webcomic and they're kind of unstable, or they're like young and they don't have like a means to support a website for their own thing,
or they don't know how to make a website and don't have the money to keep a domain or whatever.
Like just because you have your own website, like that doesn't mean your comic's instantly better than other people's.
And like don't pretend like although having a website is like definitely usually the end goal for pretty much everybody out there.
It is.
Everybody wants to have their own website. We don't not want to have our own websites. It's just stuff like Tapastic is really convenient, especially if you're new.
Yeah. I also like, just as an aside, I follow like a handful of like comics people, and they've started their comic on they have their own website for it, but they have actually like uploaded it to places like Tapastic and Smack G's, and they continue to update it there too. Like they have it on two places because it's like how you said earlier, Brent, like it's easier to stumble on a comic on like a hosting site. It's not easy to stumble on someone's like specifically like website for hosting a single comic, so they will update it, and like they can keep getting like a pretty continuous flow of new readers that way. But then they still have their like own website where it's like easier to read it there. It's nicer formatted, whatever.
Maybe you upload like a page, like the page ahead of that. So
so a little bit of incentive to like do.
And I think that's really smart. And I'm probably going to do stuff like that too whenever I get my own website. Like I'm going to keep using the best.
I've seen a lot of people using like Webtoons also. I don't know how like good a site that is, but I've definitely seen like more than one person I follow who does webcomics like also start hosting on Webtoons as well.
I don't know anything about Webtoons.
Yeah, me neither. It just felt worth bringing up. I think if you're just starting out and you're going to do a host site, or you're going to do your own webcomic site, like unless you have like a big following, I would also update on a hosting site like Tapastic or Smack G's or Webtoons or a Tumblr blog. One of the nice things, I updated Paradise on Tumblr for a little bit until I got locked out of my old blogs and lost it and didn't have the heart to like re-upload like 100 pages.
Thanks, Tumblr.
But one of the things I really liked about Tumblr was that you could reblog pages.
Yeah.
Like making pages like shareable, like whole pages shareable was really nice facet of also hosting on Tumblr. So yeah, if you're new and you don't have that big of a following, I think and you have the ability to do your own website, that's good. I would also probably do a host site.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
the more places you can put out there, the more eyes that will see it, and then the more that you can bring back to where you want them in a way.
Yep.
So it is risky, but it can be done.
And now we just have these thoughts up here, right?
Oh yeah, we also have some thoughts. Amber,
We
you want
have
to read
some-
out this one?
Yes. From @scribbled_death. This is something I know nothing about or where to start, especially when I feel my comic isn't good, so I feel I shouldn't have readers.
No!
That's so sad! You deserve to have readers and your comic is good. I'll just say that right now because it's facts.
Straight up fact.
It's facts. Well, I mean, we've been talking about marketing, so hopefully you did learn a little something about
but
it.
We also talked a little bit about confidence, and this was something I had hammered at me like a lot. Well, not me specifically, but like a lot of professors I had talk about. Basically, like if you stood up at critique basically and had your piece, and like you started with like this kind of sucks, like everybody's already turned their brains off. Basically, no, if you can't stand by what you've done a little bit, like you're gonna turn off a good portion of potential readers.
Yeah, if you don't even like your own stuff, why should other people read it? You know, so you might. It makes me really sad to hear that you think that you're not, like, your comic isn't good because like you made something, like you're making something, and that's awesome. Like that's so cool. That's more than a lot of other people can say.
This is very true.
And I think that effort does automatically kind of deserve you a couple readers.
I think just like take our advice that we said about like confidence, you know, just be very confident and just keep putting it out there. Just keep putting it out there. Find ways to kind of get in front of other people, new people. I mean, honestly, just don't give up. Keep going, man.
Yeah, confidence is really hard.
Oh yeah, like we say like, you know, be confident, but like there are a lot of reasons why confidence would not come easy to everyone, and everyone has down periods. Everybody. Unless you're a jerk.
I'm actually in like a super down period right now, which is why I'm like blitzing through. I'm blitzing through my last chunk of my chapter 4. Because I want it to be done so I can stop working on it for a couple months and take a big break, because I'm like, I need to remember how to have fun drawing. But like, I think like it's kind of like, so having confidence is tough, but like, it's also kind of like, if you have like self-confidence issues, you can also just kind of like curb that away from like putting that in your followers' faces. Like,
as also true, a private Twitter can be your good friend.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like to share
Twitter
your negative.
You just spit out your negativity and get it out.
Because it's like a cycle. Like what I said before. Like negativity perpetuates negativity. Like it'll just keep getting worse. So like it's hard, but like just don't give up. Keep trying. Like keep working. You obviously like it a little bit if you're working on it. You have to like it if you started it. Really didn't like it, you wouldn't be doing it. Because webcomics are freaking hard.
They are.
Don't give up. I believe in you.
Don't give up.
Right. So the second to last thought from @HollowSheDevil. To get people interested in your webcomic, you gotta smother it in honey, leave it out in the woods, and wait. Works every time.
This is true.
Yeah, that's tried and true, tested.
See, I not only tried honey, I've also tried peanut butter, I've tried strawberry jam.
If you stick to honey, though, you might have like a pretty heavy like bear increase in your readerships.
Yeah, that's
you just might have a whole bunch of bears reading your webcomic, and maybe you want a whole bunch of bears reading your webcomic.
You know, Sir Barrington has been known to read webcomics, and he might just like stop by every now and then to check up on see what's going on. He's a binge reader.
You know, bears and honey is one of those things I can't remember if it's a myth or not. It might be perpetuating harmful bear facts.
Is Sir Barrington our new speech bubbles OC?
That's a D&D thing. I just brought that in here.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, I'm gonna play John Twitter in the next tabletop campaign.
Oh friggin'!
I'm gonna max out unarmed combat.
Oh my friggin' god!
Let's rein it in.
Let's rein it in before we go on like a
This is
really
not the
stupid tangent.
This is not a tabletop podcast.
Not yet.
That's
Not
our
yet.
podcast starting after the Gotham podcast and the anime podcast.
Listen, I legitimately would do a Gotham watch along podcast.
Let's talk about this after this. I'm not gonna
All right.
start. I have some questions that I thought of that I'd like to ask all of us. So I will read a few to you guys here. This is where Jeff puts down his reading glasses on halfway on his nose, sits with his leg crossed up on right behind the fire, like, hello readers, hello.
This is the Jeff Pop
here.
quiz.
I have 2 questions here for our lovely other co-hosts here, Brent and Amber. So, friends, fellows, buddies, tell me, how well do you know your audience? How often do you engage with them?
Amber, you
Every
actually
dang
just
day,
did,
depending
you just did a
on
poll
if
on
they follow.
readership, didn't you?
I did actually. I just did a little poll on one of my updates because I was really interested in what the age group of the people who read my comic are. The results came back and most of my readers are between 16 and 19, and then 20 and 23. That's most of my readers, and I'm like, that's about where I wanted that to be,
No big surprises.
No big surprises there. I do have some younger readers, and I have some. I'm I have sure people coming, but yeah, I engage with my specifically with my readers on Tapastic, because that's where I host right now. I don't actually make big I know I follow some people on Tapastic, and they do updates and status updates through Tapastic's posting system. Pretty frequently, and they're talking to their readers, respond to a lot of comments that they get. I am not that kind of a person, weirdly. I have a hard time responding to a lot of comments. I kind of save my commenting and replies to people if it's funny. I'm trying to perpetuate jokes and well-meaning positivity in my comment section, so I don't respond to negative stuff. Unless it's really important. I try so I engage with my readers on Tapastic kind of rarely. Although they seem to like me, which is I get a lot of personalized comments, which is funny. I think it's funny. But and then if they follow me on social media, I engage. If you follow me on Twitter, I will talk to you. The chances of me talking to you is a lot higher on Twitter.
Yeah,
because I'm on it a lot, so
I'll respond to comment. I usually don't respond to a lot of comments. If I get a comment that's asking for clarity of some sort, or is it just someone who's earnestly confused about something on a page, I will comment back at them. But I'm also probably the same way. If you tweet at me about something, I usually do try my best to respond. If I've got a lot of tweets or something and it's maybe me apologizing to my followers a little bit, sometimes I don't have the social stamina to do more than click that little heart. And
yeah,
I apologize for that, but I do if I can think of a good response, I do try to respond to people on Twitter as well I can.
Yeah, social stamina is a big failing of mine because I definitely I try my best. I don't have the energy. I'll toss you a I saw it. Thanks.
It comes and goes.
Well, that is also me, so I have nothing else to add to that. So tell me, how do you create the mystical, the magical, the wondrous, the brand?
Oh
boy,
gosh.
this is something we mentioned on not
the
the last one, maybe the one before that.
The social media one.
It would have been the social media episode. We might have mentioned brandifying yourself, and it's honestly, it's a little gross, but it's gross. It's gross to talk about because it's not intentional, but the way online content is, creators do stuff now, you're not just selling your content, you're selling yourself as a creator. You are selling, that's just the facts of it. If you're trying to get to a point where you can maybe like financially support yourself on this, you're not just selling your work. If you're like a YouTube creator, you do LPs, you do maybe like Twine games, or you do webcomics. If you're creating mostly free content on the internet, you're selling yourself as a brand. And it's really gross, but it's how it is. And sometimes that means like tapering yourself and like not like spilling a whole bunch of personal details out on social media or something, like being a little guarded. That's what that ends up meaning a lot of times.
Yeah, being a little guarded. Sometimes this also includes becoming kind of jaded, which sucks.
Yeah, but you stay in anything long enough and you get jaded.
Yeah, like you get jaded, you have to be really aware of how you are presenting yourself when you talk to people that you don't know really well. You like, I'm like, the way I like will say messages to people varies very differently depending on who I'm messaging. If it's someone I don't know really well, but like I reckon and follow me for a long time, I might be a little more chummy with them. But like I'm always trying to maintain like a level of professionalism in my like public Twitter space. I say as I'm like screaming and also have like the stupidest icon right now. But
well,
anyway,
there's that line between like you want to be a professional person, but you also want to seem like a real human.
Yeah,
also.
you like so like... you give out pieces of yourself. You like show your sense of humor and you like share things that you think are cool and funny, and you share jokes that are stupid but you laughed at, like, and so it's like you have this level of like you're trying to humanize yourself, but you're also trying to like not be too human that people start like assuming things of you, and like it's a whole mess.
It goes back to what we said earlier about basically like being honest, because I also think people will see like if you're like really really cold on social media, like people if you're doing it in a way that feels really like I am watching everything I say, this is my social media, I like this, here is art. Like, people are gonna notice that and be like, oh, you're a robot.
Oh,
and it's like you want to feel like an honest person, but you can't give the social media beast your whole soul.
Yeah, which is why you get a private Twitter.
That's why you get a private Twitter, and then you have like less than 10 people follow that, and then that can be like how regular people use social media.
Yeah, that's like so weird. Like that's something we didn't actually talk about
on the social media episode.
The private Twitter.
Yeah.
If you have a Twitter, private, if you don't know, and if you don't have one, private Twitter is just a locked account where your mutuals and like good buddies have it, and you get to just talk like the olden days and how normal people that don't have to worry about a brand can talk. Like, just really honest. Like, that's where you talk about like actual like issues and things that you're feeling and thoughts, and also sometimes secret art.
And we talk about it like it's this cynical thing. It's not something you like. It's not something you think about like the way we're speaking it. Does that make sense? It's not like we set out and be like, okay, this is how I have to build my brand. It's just like it's something
more
like
natural.
Once you get a certain amount of like an audience, you become really cognizant of how many eyes are on you, and that becoming more of a brand and like because you're not lying, you're just compartmentalizing like parts of your personality basically.
Yeah.
Man, this is a real like deep cut.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
It's a weird thing, and people don't really talk that very much. So like, here comes John Twitter.
We gave away too many secrets.
I mean, and like for example, like I don't like spamming my public Twitter. I don't like putting a whole lot of tweets out at once, unless there's like something ridiculously hilarious that I'm like, please everyone look at this really funny thing. Usually I will live tweet stuff on my private Twitter, like just like put my thoughts out for like things, like, because I don't it gets kind of annoying, and I don't want to like irritate the people. Like, I'm aware of how many people are following me, and
I don't need to put like 200 tweets about Penny Dreadful on my main account.
Exactly. Like, I don't need to put my grueling live tweets of Once Upon a Time on my main account, you know, like,
nobody needs that.
Yeah,
That's just
so
for me and 10 of my closest buds.
exactly, like it's just a little like, I don't know, safer space.
Yeah, I hope we don't sound like we're coming off like really cold and cynical.
Yeah,
but...
it's not. It's not as like robotic as it sounds. It's just kind of like a natural progression of things that like I was like, maybe I should get a private Twitter.
It's just something to be aware of as your audience and your presence on the internet grows. And it's like, it's a weird new thing because online content creation has only like become a real viable thing in the past like 10 years. And I mean, if you're not planning on like if that's not your goal, and I mean, you know, like creatively speaking, you know, audience isn't anybody's real goal, but like if you can see yourself eventually having like thousands of people reading your work, that's a lot of eyes. Like even like a couple hundred eyes, that's a lot of eyes on your work, and that's a lot of perspectives, and that's a lot of people who see you on social media, and that's just something to be aware of.
And a lot of people that are perceiving you and everything you do and everything you put public. It's kind of something you become aware of, and you kind of learn to like cultivate yourself in like, you know, it's not like none of us are dishonest people. Everything is very like,
you're not sitting in a lab being like, how can I best cultivate my brand, and how can I best grow my crop of followers.
Like talking about it, it just feels so much like it's really like sinister almost.
Yeah, it's more
like we're like honesty is important, but also private Twitter, like, you know.
It's like it's like more. It's a lot of these things are more part of your subconscious as a content creator.
Yeah, or it's like kind of this is just like a natural thing that like eventually happened, and it just is like laying out the thought process behind it and like step by step makes it sound really like robotic and like conniving, but like it's not.
I think the best way to describe it is, how can I, as a public figure, be seen as a positive person, or not going to be like saying things that could potentially like alienate or estrange my readership, or I guess the best thing about it is just like when you see like celebrities, you know, they're not going to just like constantly like sharing their personal thoughts. They're a good figure out there in the public.
It depends on the celebrity.
Depends on the celebrity. Yeah, and you know, and this is also like, it depends on what your personal level of like comfort is with true. This. Yeah, because some people are so like open, like really open with like all of their problems and feelings and like thoughts, like they're super open, and like respect, like you have the confidence to do that. I don't.
Yeah.
I like to share jokes with people, and like I try to like, I don't want to like have my public Twitter have like negativity on it, because I like to perpetuate like positivity and jokes and like good things, you know. So I don't want to like bring people down or like make people upset, so because like I don't like that, so I don't want to be the one to do that to other people. So,
and like listen audience, if I could take you aside for a second, if I'm being honest, a lot of this stuff that we just said in probably the past 10 minutes or so isn't going to be stuff you're going to be worrying about right away. It's just like something to keep in mind as your following grows and as your audience grows. It's something to keep these. It's good to keep these things in mind and observe other content creators and see how they present themselves to the world and stuff.
Yeah.
Man, we got real. Yeah. We got really real for like.
That was something I really wanted to talk about. Like, yes.
Very clearly, like eating us up a little bit. I really wanted to fit that whole string of thoughts in the social media episode. We just did not have the time.
We forgot to. So.
Speaking of time, we might be running out of it. So I'm going to just ask these last two questions here for you guys, and the next one can be just a yes or no answer. But I would like to know: do you use multiple social media websites to help promote your brand?
Yeah, Twitter and Tumblr.
Yeah, I use Twitter and Tumblr.
And Tabastic, I guess.
Okay. And
Jeff writes a check down on a clipboard. Honestly,
we're in the study group.
For me, like I'm just like, yeah, let's see how these two do it. All right. Seeing as I'm not the social media giant here, do you have trouble staying on brand?
Oh,
no, because my brand is me.
Yeah, my brand is just like shit I like.
Yeah, like I feel like for my audience at least, I feel like if they've been with me long enough, they know that monster guys, like monster men, kind of awful people, weird, like villains,
Space.
like space, you know, like the stuff that I like and the stuff I talk about. It's because it's a constant. They're constant things. It's me.
I do associate Monster Men with you, so I do think you.
I can't get off brand because everything that I like is my brand.
Yeah, your brand
Very
is
true.
you.
So I guess we can say that Amber here is very successfully on brand.
All the time. Give me a T-shirt that says that. I'm always on. TM.
On brand TM. The Bad Guy Appreciation Station.
That's me. That's where I live.
All right, well, that's all I have for now, and I think we're already stretching this pretty long. So
We are
Brent.
at 1 hour and 8 minutes.
That's about the normal.
It was like
That's
pretty
the normal time.
perfect. Yeah, I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to ruin it, but we got pretty like perfect runtime going.
Hey
I
Brent.
thought
Hey
Yeah,
Brent. Do you have the webcomic recommendation of the week?
I do have the webcomic recommendation of the week. Actually have it sitting on my shelf right now. I've definitely mentioned it on program before. I am going to be recommending Sakana, or Sakana as I called it in my head while I was reading it. Sakana is a slice of life comic. It's a Hiveworks joint. It's about a bunch of guys who work at a sushi market. I believe that is a real sushi market in Japan that the author had like visited and stuff and researched a lot. And it's basically like a slice of life as this like main character. Like it starts out with the main character kind of like crushing on the girl who's the cashier across the way basically, and but they don't dwell on that. Basically like circumstances happen that basically like the first kind of big arc is their like first date, and it's really awkward, and his friends are like ridiculous, and the character writing is really really good. It doesn't have like a little like succinct about on the website. Oh yeah, but there is on the physical volume, which I have right here.
Excellent.
Courting the girl of your dreams can be difficult when you work at the busiest fish market in the world. It's even more difficult if you're an especially nervous person, and near impossible if your brother is kind of shady, your roommate is drunk 50% of the time, and your supervisor hates your guts. Unfortunately, Jiro Sakana has all of these problems and then some. It's a slice of life romantic comedy, sly rom-com if you will, set in the Tsukiji fish market in Tokyo, Japan. Our heroes must wrangle unruly seafood and navigate a hazardous dating scene in order to find love, peace of mind, and a paycheck. And the thing that really stuck out to me on my first read-through is black and white, and it's like newspaper orientation, like it's like strip panels, but the art is so good. It's like Mad Rupert, who's the artist, I don't know if I mentioned, does it on ink in Bristol, and it's just very very good looking. The expressions and the backgrounds and the like hatching and stuff is all really like top notch. So that's my recommendation. I'm not actually concurrent, but I read probably like the first like 6 or 7 chapters, which is enough for me to like stamp a stamp of approval and be like, yes, you guys should check out this comic.
I binged it like right before. Sorry, I was just gonna say I binged it right before like it hits one of its hiatuses, and I'm super into it. It's a really good comic. I love the characters in it and their interactions and everything.
I'm the only one that hasn't read it this week.
There's a sizable amount of it out too. There's like, man, let me hit the archive real quick on this website because it's a lot.
One volume at least.
Yeah, it's one volume, and then 18. It's on its 18th chapter right now, and each chapter is probably about like 20 or 30 strips, I think, give or take.
That's the nice thing. The pages are really fast.
Yeah.
Just get right through it.
So yeah,
I've been meaning to read this one for a long time, and I will go read that.
That's my recommendation this week is Sakana by Matt Rupert.
It's a good comic. Good recommendation.
All right, I think that was gonna do it for us this week. I hope we didn't get too real at the end there. But I think
this is a real world we're living.
It's
you
real
gotta get
world.
real.
We can't sugarcoat it for you, audience. We gotta tell you how it is. We gotta bring you the real facts, the hard facts, the real hard facts. But yeah, until next time, I have been Brent.
I've been Amber.
And I've been Jeff.
And we...
Guys,
Yes?
guys, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but there's someone with a very squeaky voice right behind me. And they're cracking their knuckles.
Oh
no. We got too real. John Twitter's gonna get you.
John Twitter's gonna freaking get you.
Well, while John Twitter breaks Jeff's phone with his giant hands, I'm gonna remind you guys that we do this for free, and we'll see you next week.
Rip Jeff.
Wait, no!
God Christ.